Gentlemen, how goes it, fellas? How goes it this morning? Today I want to talk about how we normally think of the bad and the negative, and that's what's usually at the front of our brain, but how we need to flip that and have the positive and the good things we've done in our life at the front. So, it's easy to remember the bad things we've done. It's easy to remember when we were embarrassed, when we were scared and didn't make the right move, made a mistake, messed up. But it's extremely difficult to remember the good, to remember our wins, to remind ourselves the moments where we were most proud, where we felt fulfilled, where we know we did the good work. These are the moments that have to be at the front of our mind. Because as we know, the stories that you constantly tell yourself and what you keep thinking about and your identity and how you see yourself, your self-belief, this is going to shape who you are. So if you keep thinking about these negative past situations and you keep telling yourself that you're not capable to go after your goals because you have proof of plenty examples where you were embarrassed, where you made mistakes, where you weren't at your best. And we have to be our biggest friend, our best friend, our biggest supporter. Nobody's going to care enough about your goals and your life enough that you need. You need to just be on your side. You need to be on your side. If you're against yourself, life is going to be so difficult. I was against myself for a while, and it seems like every day is just a struggle to put one foot in front of the other. Okay, so we need to be on our own side. And why is it easier for us to remember the bad times and the negativity and the embarrassing moments? It's because our brain is designed for comfort and for familiarity. And so we see these things as a threat, right? Our ancestors would have to hunt, eat, and they had to stay alive. They had to watch themselves. They could be getting attacked at any time, but we don't have that now, but our brain's still the same. When a bad moment happens, negativity, when we mess up and embarrass ourselves, our brain's taken that as a threat. So it holds on to it. It holds on to it, and it'll keep it at the front of our mind to remind ourselves that maybe we're in enemy territory, or we got to be careful and cautious. And this isn't what we want. This isn't what we want, because when you want a great life, you're going to have to do some things that require taking risks and require doing something outside the box and require full belief in yourself. And if you're telling yourself that you don't think you can do it, or you're bringing up reasons why you might fail, you're not going to succeed. You're not going to succeed. It's hard enough. So, it's impossible to do what you want and to enjoy life if you're not even on your own side. So, you got to be aware of when you're bringing negativity into your own life, okay? When you're just sitting there and all of a sudden the thought of something that happened 5 years ago comes up and it affects your mood and it allows you to become anxious and mad and then thinking about that one thing, if you don't take control of it, you'll go down another rabbit hole and think about another time that was uncomfortable for you and another mistake that you had. And when you get into these deep cycles, you just think you're not good enough. You think you don't have it in you. You think that your goals maybe are just dreams and wishes and that they can't become a reality. And this is what happens when you keep replaying these bad situations. Because if you keep thinking about negativity, that's how the outside of your life is gonna be. Everything starts inside. So if you're positive inside, if you are, a fan of yourself and you love what you do and how you operate, the world outside of your two eyes is going to be amazing. But if these stories of what you did 10 years ago and reasons of why you can't succeed, if those are what you're feeling on the inside at all times, then everything on the outside is going to be pretty gray and dull and lifeless. So when you catch yourself talking negative about yourself, or you catch yourself replaying an old situation or an old story, and you're telling yourself that you're not good enough and you can't do this, and you're a failure because you have a couple stories in the past to prove it, you need to remind yourself of some wins. You need to remind yourself of some wins. Because we're as good as our wins. We're not as bad as our worst times. We're as good as our best times, if that's how you choose to think about it, if that's what you focus on. But you need to focus on these wins. You need to focus on what you've done well in the past and what you're doing well day to day, and the things that you're proud of. Because if you don't, like I said, the brain loves to bring up negativity and these bad moments because they're a threat to us. So we need to counteract that and cut it off immediately as we notice ourselves thinking about these negativity or whatever, and replace it with a positive story, or a win that we've had in the past, or something that we did today that's good for our future selves. And it's a game, it's a process. You have to keep remembering. You have to override the system. Right? The pre-built system, we're naturally likely to think about negativity, think about our losses, our mistakes. So we have to focus on overriding that system and bring in the positives instead. And if you do this for long enough, like everything, it might become a habit. If you do something continuously for long enough, it might become a habit, and then you're not going to have to physically think about stopping yourself when you notice the negativity. You don't have to physically think about cutting it off. You don't have to think about replacing it with a positive win or a good story, a good moment that we've had. It'll become a habit. But at the beginning, you have to focus very hard on overriding this negativity. Because imagine if you were just hyping yourself up all the time. That's such a different reality. Imagine if you're walking through the day and you're your own biggest fan, you're your cheerleader. In your head, you have a random moment pop up of some amazing act of kindness that you did. Imagine how much different you'd be moving. Imagine how much different you'd feel day to day. Imagine how easy it would be to wake up and go after what you want when you're encouraging yourself to do that, and when your automatic self-talk becomes positive. So that's going to be down the road. That's going to come once we've done this for long enough. But at the beginning, we really have to focus on every time we get into the habit of telling ourselves a story that doesn't help us. If something doesn't help you, you have to realize it, recognize it, and then let it pass. So these memories, right? They're memories. They technically won't go away ever, but we can change the story of how we think of them. So right now, I'll give some personal examples. I remember being the last out of the season one time in baseball. We're in the championship, and this is my last year Little League. We're in the district championship, so then you go to state. If you win state, you go to regionals, then the World Series. So we're just in the first tournament, and I get out on the last at bat. I think I had to roll over to the pitch or something. But I remember blaming myself for it and thinking I was the reason we didn't make it to the Little League World Series. And this story, I kept telling myself the next year. I remember the next year I didn't want to play baseball. I tell my parents I'm trying to complain and say I hate baseball because my perception of it was negative, because the stories that I kept telling myself every time I thought about baseball was me getting the last out, was me rolling over to the pitcher, was me thinking that I couldn't get it done in the time that mattered most. So I didn't want to play baseball. And then, my parents made me, and obviously I'm very thankful for that. But then get to high school, and I'm still not operating at my highest level because I'm thinking about the negative time, the time when I had the opportunity to come up clutch and I failed. And I let that one at bat sit with me for so long. And it was only negative. Okay? Here's what I could have done different. Here's what I do different now and what you can do different. That whole season, I probably hit 20, 25 home runs. And the story I told myself about baseball was that I couldn't come up clutch when the moment was big enough. But I had 20 home runs on the year. I won games for my team, threw no-hitters, did some good things, and only focused on the one negative of rolling out to the pitcher to end the season. There's lessons to be learned from that at-bat for sure. There's lessons to be learned from the negative moment that I had. I understand now that in that moment, I was placing too much importance on it. Oh my gosh, it's the last at-bat of the year. I have to be so tight. I can't mess up or I'm a failure. If I don't hit a home run right here, the season's over. If that's your mindset and you think it's the end of the world and you're putting so much importance on it and you think it's way more important than the previous at-bat you had just because it's a different inning with a different score and a different time, then you're likely to mess up. So what I could have done in the moment is after that game, reflect on that bat. Understand that I came up way too tense. I put way too much importance on this at bat instead of being loose, being relaxed, having fun. I was so nervous. I was so tight, so tense. So that's what I could have learned from that at bat. And then when I caught myself telling stories to myself about that at bat, about how I was a failure and how I ruined the season and couldn't come up clutch when it mattered most. What I do different now, what I should have done different then, what you are going to start doing now is replace the thought with one of those home runs. Replace the thought with a no-hitter. So let's say I'm just walking down the street and my mind tells you, oh, remember that at bat when you rolled out and you cost your team the season and you were so distraught after you didn't even want to play baseball anymore. Right then, I gain consciousness and I gain realization that that's what I'm telling myself. I'm aware of my self-talk now. For the first couple points, I wasn't aware, but then I gained control and I'm aware. So as soon as you become aware that you're talking to yourself negatively, you say, okay, but what about the home run I hit 350 when I was 13? What about the no-hitter I threw? How about that? You just replaced one negative with two positives, and you took control of the situation. So then instead of hanging your head, walking down the street, thinking about this bad play that you had, this bad at-bat, and then letting that go to another bad point. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, not only did you get that last out of the season, but remember when you embarrassed yourself in class? How did that feel? Remember when you didn't come prepared for this test and embarrassed yourself or whatever. And you would just keep going down in a negative spiral. But since you gained control of what you were thinking, you gained control of your mind, you understood that it wasn't serving you in any way to think about this negative moment. That's the first step. You gain control. The second step is you cut it off. You say, well, that doesn't matter. That was the past. That happened. That was one at bat. And then you fill it in with two positives. Yeah, but I hit a home run that same game. I hit a home run that same game. The score would have been completely different. It wouldn't have been a close game if I didn't hit that home run. I threw a no-hitter the day before. Who's throwing a no-hitter and then hitting a homer the next day? Not many. So that's how you take control of your life. That's how you take control of your mind. And that's how when you do this long enough and it just becomes kind of automatic. You become your own friend. Right now you're probably your enemy. You remember all these negative things and you think you're a bad person and you think you can't come in clutch and when the time matters most because every story you tell yourself is about a time that you failed. So you have to start remembering your wins and telling yourself your wins and cheering yourself on. And in the moment when you notice you get a win, you have to stop, you have to appreciate it a little bit. Just give yourself one of these, a chest bump, a little flex, something. Remind yourself that you're doing the good work, because it's you. A lot of times when you're doing the good work, you don't notice. You could go, for me personally, I might not do one bad habit for days in a row, weeks in a row, and then I mess up one time and that's all I focus on. I didn't even realize that in the moment I was living my life the way I want and doing all the good work and doing things for my future self. I didn't even notice. And then I mess up one time and it's the end of the world. It's the one thing that I'm thinking about. I can't believe I did that. I'm a failure. I messed up. And so you have to take control. You have to be aware of your mind and fill it in with positives. But understand right now, what are the stories that you're telling yourself? Because even the stories that you tell yourself, you can change. There was like one moment that I remember stuck with me for a while. It kind of changed the way I would raise my hand and all that. I'm in class and I had just moved from Portland to Seattle, so I'm in a brand new class. It's, I think, my first day. And some dumb story. The teachers, we're in a math class and the teacher goes, who knows what the mean is? Who knows what the mean means? We have mean, medium, and whatever the other one is. Who knows what the mean is? And I raise my hand and I go, oh, it's somebody who's not nice. And the whole class starts laughing and they're, making a joke out of it. And I decided for some reason to get all hurt about it. I was like, not hurt, but I was like blaming myself. Man, how could I be so dumb and think she was talking about being nice or being mean? How could I possibly think that? When in reality, it was just a funny moment. It was I messed up. I could have easily just laughed and accepted, maybe even played it off like you were joking or just laugh in the moment. That's, how you could have reacted. But for some reason, I chose to just get so mad about it. And this changed how I raised my hand. I remember every time I would want to raise my hand, sometimes I would think, oh man, I can't mess up like I did with the mean. I can't mess up like I did my first day at that new school. And so these stories right here are make big impacts on our life. They make big impacts on our life. But how you can change a past story is, for so long I was thinking I was just dumb for talking about the mean. How could I not understand that? How could I think that's what they were talking about? But now I can literally just trick myself. I can trick myself and say that, what a funny moment that was. It caused, allowed me to meet people that maybe I wouldn't have. It allowed me to, on the first day of school, make some new friends because we started talking about what my answer after class. You can just switch the story because what you tell yourself over and over becomes true pretty much. So even if it's in the past, even if it's already happened, you can change how you think about the situation. You can use it as a learning moment. You can change the way you tell yourself the story, and over time, it might become a completely different story. Over time, I can use that story to want to raise my hand more because maybe I can tell myself at the time I just hadn't raised my hand enough and I wasn't experienced enough in public speaking. So now I want to raise my hand to get better at that, just because of the story that I changed about what actually happened and what I kept telling myself over and over. Now I can tell myself, yeah, that was one of the best moments of my childhood. I messed up. I learned how to take a joke. I learned how to get embarrassed. When in reality, that's not what happened. I was mad about the situation, but now I can just tell myself a different meaning of the story, which will affect how I feel about that story, which affects what I tell myself, which affects who I believe I am. So it all relates to everything, right? So that negative story can become a positive win that you tell yourself when you realize and you take control and catch yourself talking about negativity to yourself. So remember, take control of your mind. When you notice you're talking about negatives or bad moments you had in the past or mistakes that you've made, cut it off immediately. You have to understand that you're doing it and it serves you no purpose, and cut it off immediately. And then refill it with positives. It could be these made up stories that you changed about the past, like I just explained about how I raised my hand, embarrassed myself, let it affect me for many, many years. But now I realize that I can change that story, use it as a lesson, tell myself that that was one of the best moments that I ever had. And now, if I ever need a win to think of, I could just say, oh, what about that time you made friends from talking about the mean when you got the answer totally wrong? Positives are going to get you to the next level. You have to be on your side. You have to be your own biggest friend. Stop thinking about your negatives. Learn from them. Learn from your past. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from your failures, and then let them go. Let them go. Replace them with wins. Remember your wins. You're doing some good things. You're doing some good things. Okay? I'm proud of you. Take action from this video. Start taking control of your mind. And your whole reality is going to shift. And it's an exciting time. I can't wait to experience it with you. Love you, boys.